welcome to our September 2023 meeting of the Silicon Valley Mac user group. We are going to be discussing the various things that were shown at the product demo last week, plus some of the stuff that was included in the Worldwide Developer Conference that happened last June, since the two very nicely go hand in hand between hardware and software. We're going to have presentations from Charles Goucher, myself, Linda Goucher, Dan Foy, and Robert Brown on hardware, iOS, macOS, and the Vision Pro glasses. So let's get started with the hardware. First thing up is last June at the developer conference, we finally received our promised professional Macs on things. The most notable of those was essentially we got the M2 Apple Silicon chips out. So first thing introduced were Pro Macs. This is probably going to cover, like, first of all, they did an update to the Mac Studio, which is expected to cover about 90% of the professional market. It's pretty much the same as the Studio that Apple had released last year, a whole lot of ports on the back. The new M2 Apple Silicon on the inside, which gives you up to, I think, 192 gigabytes of RAM, which should be enough for most everybody, including photography and video professionals. And 30% more processing power. This thing is a monster in a very small case. But if you're one of those people who needs the most top-end stuff, Apple has finally released the Mac Pro Tower. This is pretty much the same thing as what you get with the Mac Studio, except even more ports. I think this has 6 to 8 Thunderbolt ports on it. Same specs on RAM and so forth, but this one also has PCI card slots, which is what a whole lot of high-end professionals have been demanding. And now they get this thing. This is not a cheap thing. It starts at $6,000 and goes very swiftly over $20,000. The common person is never going to touch one of these, and the common person shouldn't. But it is out there for those people whose businesses are based around these things. So beyond that, we then go to the new stuff. iPhone 15 has come out. Welcome to this year's new item. And as expected, it's pretty much taken all of the things that you would expect from last year's iPhone 14 Pro and has put them into a case for a more normalized cost for the average person. Most notable things that they've done with it are increase the brightness. They are quoting twice as bright as the previous one, which is a good standing on things. We now get the dynamic island instead of the notch on the top. So you get to have that lovely experience where the island will actually go from just covering the little bitty space for the camera all the way out to show you notifications, playback info, weather info, and other such things as you need it while you use it. It's actually very cool. Looking forward to seeing more people make use of that. This new one also gets the new 48 megapixel main camera. This is a direct move over from last year's iPhone 14 Pro. The normal cameras in the phone are 12 megapixels, and the pictures that get saved are 12 megapixel pictures. But it is actually capturing data at 48 megapixels and then applying processing to give you a much more detailed 12 megapixel picture. There's a couple of extra settings in there if you really want to push that and make it 48K, but 48 megapixels, but I recommend against it. Just let it do what it wants to do. The most notable thing has been the colors on this thing. The colors, instead of being kind of painted onto the front and back, are infused into the metal and into the glass on it. It makes for a much more uniform experience on the things, but some people out there have actually complained that the colors are not as strong, as saturated as they would really want on these. No pleasing everybody, I guess. And then there's this little thing that they put into it, USB-C. Yes, welcome to the USB-C era for phones. It is the Europeans' fault. They actually passed extra laws for the European community about 3-4 years ago, saying that all devices must use USB-C to do their connections, especially for power cabling and the like. And the deadline for that is actually going to be coming up at, is it the end of this year or perhaps mid next year? But Apple needed to get that together and out in order to fit with everybody else. So bye-bye Lightning, hello USB-C. Not really any different than what you would expect of the things. These are the same ports that have been around on the iPad for the last 2 years and have been around on the Mac for the last 5 years. It is only USB 3 speed compared to, I think, 3.2, USB 3.2 on the pads, and USB 4, I want to say, on the laptops. So this will offer a pretty hefty speed boost over the previous Lightning, but it won't quite be as fast as what the laptops and other Mac computers have offered. Still, it does mean that you're going to be able to plug one single cord into everything. Your Mac, your iPad, your phone will all take the same power cord. And if you plug in anything that's 20-watt power supply or larger, it will fast charge and give you at least half the battery within half an hour. So huzzah, this actually should be a good improvement on the things. Also, if you're doing data connections, again, since it's USB 3 now, you can transfer files over much faster with the thing. So you can do downloads, backups. Everybody here is backing up their iPhone, right? Not just to iCloud. Plug it into your Mac, make a backup of your phone on your Mac. And it'll be a great thing, and everybody will be able to use the same cords. Well, not quite. We'll get more into that later on. There's actually a number of devices out there that are still using the Lightning, but in most cases, you can just stick with the one USB cord and you're good for everything. So what else on the thing is working with that? Of course, the iPhone, the big one that everybody was waiting for, the iPhone 15 Pro. This realistically is more of an iteration than anything else. It's a structural upgrade. So they added a titanium case around the outside, but the inside is going to, at least structurally, be pretty much the same as previous. It is a little smaller, slightly thicker, and a little bit more than slightly lighter than the iPhone 14 Pros. I believe your old cases will fit, but we won't know for sure on that until next week, when the phones actually ship. New processor on the inside. They have replaced the A16 Bionic with the A17 Pro. It really doesn't offer that much as far as new features on the things. It's slightly faster. It's got better graphics on it. The most notable thing is that they've actually improved on the machine learning, modern parlance, AI. Apple doesn't use that term, but whatever. The artificial intelligence cores on the thing. So it is actually able to do a bit more things. Apple is still not doing any of those generative AI chatbots or any of that sort of stuff, but don't be fooled. There is a hell of a lot of machine learning action going on in the background. Face recognition, learning your habits, mapping, schedules, power consumption, and power charging of the things. I have noticed, for instance, that when I plug my phone in overnight, it does not immediately start recharging. It holds on that until about 3 a.m. and then starts charging. That's the artificial intelligence stuff actually kicking in and saying, oh, wait, you're probably going to be hooked in for the next 12 hours. Let's hold off on that and get it when it's a little more relevant. Or better yet, let's hold off on using the power until the power grid has more capacity and it's a little bit cheaper for the user. Different things like that. And there's hundreds of places like this where the AI is actually being used in these things. And it's all done in the phone. There's no server connections necessary to do this stuff, which is great for privacy. Greatest surprise on the whole thing, hey, prices didn't change. All of the phones are the same price as last year, with one exception. The iPhone Pro Max is, on the face of it, $200 more. But for that $200, they're also doubling the storage capacity on the thing. So that's $100 right there, really. So the other $100 covers the major feature going into the thing. They've upgraded the zoom camera on it from 3x to 5x, the periscope camera, as they refer to it in the industry, has arrived at last, and it gives a much better, much longer zoom on the thing, which is going to be great. I mean, it means that we actually can take it from, what is it, like a half X wide angle to a 5x zoom in. So that's what, like a 10x zoom, optical zoom. And then you add in more beyond that, and you get like 50x if you include the digital stuff. I'm actually quite amazed. I may stop using a point and shoot or even a semi-professional camera entirely. This thing is just a monster when it comes to taking pictures. The other major advancement they've made on it is they have replaced the switch on the side that normally you would just use to toggle mute on and off, make your phone silent or not. It's gone, and it is replaced with an action button. You can still actually use that to silence the phone as before. But now if you give it just a single click, you can do a single action of your choice. Maybe it's take a picture. Maybe it's like pull up the weather, or one of the interesting ideas is you could use it to immediately open the Translate app. So it's like, can't understand somebody? Click, speak into this, please. And here's your translation. But, and here's the fun part, you can actually attach a shortcut to it. You remember those shortcuts that we saw a demonstration for at an SVMUG meeting a few months ago? You can plug one of these things in and do virtually anything with that button. Granted, a lot of that stuff you're probably going to need to unlock the phone first, but hey, it's Face ID. Look at the phone, and that problem's handled. So this is going to be really exciting to see what people do with this. And I would expect that we may even hear about that more when we talk to Dave Ginsburg in November concerning some new iOS features and options. So stay tuned. This is going to have some interesting potentials. And of course, the little USB stuff on the side as well. Anything else happen out there? How about an Apple Watch? Really, there's not much to pay attention to. Hey, we've got Series 9. It has twice the brightness of the previous one, kind of like the phones do. The interesting thing, the new one has better machine learning AI cores on it, so Siri doesn't rely on your phone anymore. It does all of the Siri voice recognition in the watch. Not bad, actually. So that would be interesting to be able to do Siri commands on the watch and just have it work everything in a secure environment. The watch has a new feature on the thing that apparently is specific to the new hardware, where you don't have to tap things on the screen anymore. You can actually just tap your fingers together, and it will consider that to be the same as pressing the main button that you have on the screen. So if you have a phone call, it'll answer the phone call. If you have the camera up, it'll click the shutter. miscellaneous things like that. It's looking like it ought to be really cool. It's going to be something that takes a little bit of time to learn on the things, as you think, oh yeah, I could do my fingers for that. But for those people who get used to it, it looks like it might be very convenient on that. Other major thing on that same end is the end of the leather straps. There are no more leather straps to be found. Apple has switched now to its own recycled cloth woven bands. I think they refer to it as something like micro weave, nano weave, something of that sort. And that as a result of that and other manufacturing improvements, here we have our first carbon neutral device from Apple. It's only for certain watch bands. So if you go for the higher end ones like the Milanese Loop, that's not carbon neutral, but all of your standard ones are. And for those people who are pushing on the environmental things, this is great. This is the first step. A lot of the other products, especially the phones and the Macs, will come, but it may take another few years on that. But it's great to see that thing, the first of the truly carbon neutral, zero net emissions products is actually here at last. Apple also introduced the new Ultra 2 watch out there for the mountaineers and the outdoorsman types. Really just take everything that the Series 9 got as improvements. It's all the same thing on the Ultra 2, just with the Ultra stuff added in. So improvements, personally, I wouldn't recommend that as anything. Certainly if you have a Series 8 or an Ultra 1, I would say don't bother with an update. But if you've got anything older, this is really worth a look for an upgrade. So beyond that, we have some of the remnants on USB-C things. I mentioned that not everything has actually gone to USB-C. The one thing Apple was harping on was the fact that, oh, look, the AirPods Pro now actually come with the USB-C case. Well, yeah, USB-C case. The AirPods actually inside it are unchanged. It is getting software improvements, so it's getting better environmental adaptive noise cancellation and so forth, but it is not otherwise, the hardware is not any different than the second generation that's already been out for a while. Unfortunately, Apple won't sell you just the case. You have to actually buy a completely new set to get it. So there are a number of other devices, though, that have not at present made the switch to Lightning. Keyboards, trackpads, mice, AirPods that aren't Pro. These are all still Lightning. So you're probably going to need those around, but I think you're only going to need like one Lightning cable to actually do the charging on those. And that's it. And I expect that Apple will probably phase those out within the next year as well. And to help you along on some of the processes, Apple actually has this USB-C to Lightning adapter that they're offering. $30. Thanks, Apple. That if you buy one of the new phones, like the iPhone 15, but you still have a number of Lightning things that you don't want to get rid of, like power supplies and otherwise, the adapter will let you keep those in use. And yeah, they do work for everything: microphones, power cords, adapters, the whole works. So Apple hopefully has you covered on all of the bases on that. So any questions at this point on stuff? I don't think that, anything I missed.
I have one question.
Yeah, Kenji?
I was just going to say that 5x lens, I believe, is only on the Pro Max, right?
That is correct.
Although it's rumored too that the 16 will include it next year. Supposedly somebody in the know of the supply chain says that it'll be on both phones next year.
Yeah,
Pro
my
phones.
expectation is that it'll probably show up on the 16 Pro and the 16 Pro Max.
Right,
I'm
that's what I
guessing that
meant.
the 16 non-Pro will not get it until
Yeah.
25.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The both Pro phones.
Yeah, Dan?
So with the latest Mac Pros, including the one that has the PCIe, does that mean there's no more Intel in the product line?
That is correct. Intel is completely removed from Apple's product line. There are no Intel Macs to be sold anymore. You could probably still find some used ones out there, refurbs, probably. But otherwise, everything at this point is switched to Apple Silicon.
Excellent.
So I'm planning on buying a Pro Max, and I'm wondering about how much RAM I need. I don't really do videos, but I do take pictures. How much the new larger lenses? Will I be taking 48 megapixel photos with it?
Only if you tell it to. It's still in general going to be sticking to the 12 megapixel size that it considers standard on that, but you can go in there and tell it to switch to 48 megapixel if you like. The trouble is that the telephoto lens on this thing, the 5X lens, is still only a 12 megapixel camera. So you're still going to be limited on that level, but it's still doing so much computational analysis in the background, you probably won't notice.
So is the 256 gig gonna probably be enough, or would you be wise to go 512 for another $200?
That's, in my opinion, that's going to depend on how much local storage you actually are going to make use of. And I emphasize local storage. As an example on the thing, I do have some amount, a massive library of music and podcasts that I keep on, that I want to keep on my local phone. So that actually chews up a large amount of space. But photos, all the photos are in the cloud. So I've got like 30,000 photos and they just download from the cloud when needed. So they don't really take any space on the thing. Most people, I think, for standard use will find 256, or even for many 128 would be enough.
They don't have that on the Pro Max anymore though, right?
128 is no longer there. The 256 is the minimum for the Pro Max. But yeah, I mean, I always get 512 because I insist on having that local space and I want my podcasts. But you know, it's going to be things like that. I imagine if you're a person who does a large amount of video stuff, especially high-end video, that's when the 512 and the 1 terabyte will make the most sense. So let's move on then to the next part of our presentation. I'll turn it over to Linda for iOS 17.
Okay. So before I get into this, I'm going to ask Charles a question because you reminded me of something that I forgot or didn't mention it anyway in my presentation, and that's the double tap gesture that is new on the iOS, on the phone, etc. Is that just on the new hardware? Do we know if that's just on the hardware, or is that in the OS itself for the watch?
Which double tap?
Oh,
with the fingers.
yes,
That is on the new hardware only.
new hardware only. So my current watch
Series 8.
Series 8 will not do that. That looked very cool in the presentation. I'll just mention that to folks. All right. So iOS 17. Let's see. They have a feature called Standby, and this is one of the features they mentioned. If you have a little stand and you put your phone in, I'm going to say landscape mode as opposed to the vertical. And it's charging on the stand, or I think you can do that without necessarily having that particular stand. If you just have a charger that adheres to the back, you can see widgets and you can set it up. So this is an information device. Whatever information you want at a glance, a camera, and you can see on the graphics down here, some people just have the time. Some people have, it looks like a picture of a girlfriend. So here's a calendar and the time. Here's whatever music is playing, et cetera, et cetera. So that is available. And you can rotate through widgets as you like. There was a lot of emphasis on widgets, which is not something that I use very much, but it made me rethink in the presentation. It's like, oh, maybe I should be setting this up. And if you have it set up in this fashion, a little red arrow will pop up, which would indicate that you have a notification. So that's one of the this one, right? So on FaceTime, they've changed that, and I do use this quite a bit. You can create a picture of a frequent caller or not. So if this person, Jarrett, calls you, the video tutorial that I watched had set up one for Tim Cook, and you could put their memoji up there, for instance, and said, okay, whenever Tim Cook calls, they'll get this picture if Tim Cook were ever to call him. And then you can also leave a voicemail now if there's no answer, or a little video. Hey, buddy, sorry I missed you, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Really looking forward to chatting. Give me a call when you can, et cetera, something, whatever you want to, either just, just voice or a video of yourself saying that. Messages. You can now make stickers from photos, including live photos. So there's a little kitty cat there. I could do one of those. I've not done a lot with stickers. Stickers are also available in mail now, by the way. In messages, you can share your location, which is a good idea if you're trying to connect with somebody. That actually reminds me, and they're also talked about, I'm going to ask Charles and make this a conversational thing while we're doing it. They showed in the video, remember they showed the little arrow? So if the person is 15 foot away and et cetera, is that in the iOS or is that in the new phone? Do we know the answer to that?
That should have been included actually with the new hardware and stuff, because this is reliant on a new ultra wideband second generation chip in the new phones and the new watches.
Okay.
That has a new feature. Previously, you could actually do a like find my phone thing and it would just beep the other side. They've got a new ultra wideband feature now where it will actually say, oh yes, your phone is 15 feet away on the left, and point an arrow at it. But it also showed my favorite feature, find my husband. When we are at the mall, for instance, and one of us has gone in one direction and the other has gone in the other, and then I can take the phone and it will point, okay, is he in this direction? Is he in that direction? Off to my left, off to my right, since you can't, I don't think, see this. Go ahead. One caveat with that, you do have to have the new chip on both ends.
Okay.
So it only goes from new hardware to new hardware.
So that's required for the new hardware, but it's coming, figure in a couple years whenever you update and your partner updates, or your kid or whomever, who do you want to find that quickly, or, to know which direction. So anyway, that's, yeah. You can, going back to messages, thank you, Charles. You can share your location. You can also there's also this check-in feature, which is actually very cool. If you leave a party, your kid leaves a party, etc., you can let a friend or partner know that you got home safely. And that's a very good, and what it does essentially is, it says basically, as long as you're progressing towards home, it'll say, okay, Joe is on his way home. You can see more or less where he is on the map. But if he stops, or if his iPhone battery goes down, or if the phone loses connection, something like that, then you would know that right away. So that's worth knowing in some circumstances. And you can also, once you get home, you can kind of go, okay, I'm home now, disconnect my location, right? So that person isn't tracking you. forever and ever. Better search. You can search for a person, and then the search is limited to just their messages. Predictive typing is gotten better. So one of the things that they pointed out on this is that, so predictive typing gets better, so it fills in the words that you use. This is one of those things that Charles mentioned, they're using, quote, AI, machine learning. This is one of the places where they're using it specifically for you. I personally tend to still use ly on the end of my adjectives. So the person did that effectively, not just the person did that effective. I was taught grammar. That's how I was taught it. So I tend to talk like that. So it would know that and begin to add the ly on adjectives that I use in my writing. Also autocorrect improvements. And this one in particular, it'll show you like an underline, and you can tap on it and then, fix it to your liking. And it should learn how you use the language. If you use a particular slang term or something, an abbreviation used, for instance, the word through, THRU instead of THROUGH. So, etc. iOS miscellaneous. You can share passwords with family members. That's really a good thing. AAA road assistance by satellite SOS on iPhone 14 and newer. That's going to be, if you get stuck someplace and there's no connectivity, you can use the satellites. Go up to the satellites and say, AAA, I've got a flat tire and I'm out in the middle of who the hell knows where. So that will work. These, by the way, the SOS and the AAA thing, at least for the first couple years, is no charge on that. That assumes you're a AAA member. I assume AAA will charge something if you're not. But they will still come and fix your flat tire or get water for your car that's stuck on the deserts of Death Valley or wherever you happen to have broken down. Let's see. So you can also make links within notes to another note or to a website. Share contacts with other iPhone users by tapping earphones using airdrops. This is the illustration here is perfect. You get two iPhones together and it will just share the contacts as long as you have airdrop. You do have to allow airdrop it's airdrop for 10 minutes only, that particular setting. Now you can set up your phone to just, instead of, hey, S lady, you can simply say S, hey, just no hey, just Siri, blah, 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 blah. I'm waiting for something in my living room to pop up. But you can, it's an option. You don't have to do that. If for whatever reason you prefer the 2 words, you can still leave it as the 2 words. It's in settings. Offline maps will be available. So if you're going to take a trip to, I don't know, let's say a national park someplace, Yellowstone or someplace where there's not a lot of connectivity, you can get an offline map of where you're going. Set that up. You can also share air tags. So Charles and I go on a road trip. I'm driving. His air tag is in his pocket, and it says, hey, Linda, you're being followed by Charles AirTag. Well, I know he's here. He's with me. I don't need to, we can set it up so that I don't get those notices when they aren't really pertinent to us. watchOS 10. watchOS 10 is a significant redesign. Right now, when you swipe up, you get the control center. Not anymore. Swipe up is going to get you widgets. And then if you keep swiping up, you will get all apps. Apple apps have icons in the corner for navigation. So you can see this one of the exercise app, the fitness app, little fitness app, and it's got that little cycle thing up in the upper left-hand corner. So if you want to navigate to the cycle workout, etc. Same on weather. You can On the right-hand corner, you get the cloudiness, etc., world clock. You can get other different settings. So Apple apps have the icons in the corner. You can use the crown or your finger to move to, various different settings. Press the side button to get to the control center. So this underneath the crown, there's that little side button. I've known some folks who didn't even know that was there. You press that to get to your control center. I use the control center, when we go to a concert and I want to put my watch in theater mode, a concert or a play or something where I don't want it to start dinging me with notifications. I use that way. So that will take a little bit to get used to. Side button to get the control center, to put it in theater mode, etc. The other item, the last item on here, swipe no longer changes watch faces. To me, that's really a big deal. That's a big improvement because I have a particular watch face that I really like. And I can't tell you how many times a day I see Kenji nodding his head. I swipe it by mistake and I end up with a watch face. I don't want that watch face. I want my other one, my flowers. I want my flowers back. So that's going to be a very cool thing. So there you go. There's that. And that is all I have on this one. So we go now to Dan. Thank you.
Great. Okay, well, I'm going to talk about macOS Sonoma, which is, I think, of everything we're discussing tonight, the only thing that has not yet been officially released, but is coming in about a week. So let's see. Lots of improvements. Many correlate pretty strongly with the iOS 17 things that Linda has covered. But probably the biggest single thing is that widgets have finally been brought to the Mac desktop. And everything's been kind of keeping in parity between the different devices, between the Macs and the iPads and the phones. But the Mac has been lacking on keeping up with widgets to be used any way that, when you just place them on your desktop. And this is something that is now present, I think, after it's been, I think phones have had it that way for maybe 2-3 years. But this is nice because it actually has a potential of changing in some ways the way you use your Mac, because with a widget you can have, and the widgets can be interactive. Let me move along here. We do have some other improvements here. Generally, we have, these are like many small quality of life improvements. The widgets is probably the biggest one that would change how you might use your computer. So back to what I was saying, you can place widgets anywhere on your desktop. The widgets can be used interactively. So you can have a widget that is a note, or a widget that is a button for your home devices. So we can turn a lamp off and on by having a widget on your desktop. You can put reminders up. You can see in the corner here, they have a reminder. You can also put widgets that are currently on your phone, and you can have them also on your Mac desktop as a matter of the continuity feature. So you don't necessarily have to have that app installed on your Mac to see the widget from your iPhone. And when you bring a window to focus, the widgets will start to blend into the background, so they do not distract you from what you're doing. Personally, I think the widgets are going to be probably the most useful for people who have multiple monitors, where you're going to have a monitor to the side where you have these things that are there all the time. Otherwise, you're going to have to move your window out of the way to see these widgets. So as far as had some improvements, they've had, not listed here, but they've had some security improvements and some smaller things. But the bigger thing that Safari is offering right now is to have profiles. So you can have your Safari, you can set Safari's profile, so you can have a profile for home, work, any particular case you have. And what this means is that when you say have your profile set to home instead of work, you can have your home profile have its own bookmarks, its own cookies, its own favorites. Everything about that environment, what it remembers and knows, is strictly about what you use it for home. And then you can switch context of Safari with a single press to your work profile. And then it will remember all your history and your cookies and everything about everything you're doing for work within Safari. So this is, you could do this in a much more clunky way before by having different user accounts, which, switches everything over. But this is actually rather nice for people who like to just have one user account and switch contexts between major categories. And closely related with Safari is you can add any website can be added to the dock as a web app. So it essentially means that you might put if you use like web Gmail, you could have web Gmail be a web app, and you could have it be an icon on your dock, and you click that, and it would act more like an app than just another tab in your browser. So for certain much frequently used websites, it's actually going to be rather nice to put them in as a web app. As Linda mentioned, with iOS 17, the keychain does now have a password sharing feature where you can create a group and have different people have access to that group, and you put the shared passwords in. This is a feature that's been available on, say, 1Password for a while for family sharing. And this is going to be quite useful for say, I don't know, for if you want to share with your family members what your password for your online streaming services are, or things like that, where people may have a need to log in. It's not necessarily just one person in a group. So this makes it much more flexible in real world conditions. Apple Notes has gotten some improvements. They have some PDF support in terms of you can put in and browse PDFs in full scale. And you can also add multiple PDFs to a single Apple Note. And you can collaborate on PDF notes. So if you mark them up, those markups to that PDF within an Apple Note will show up immediately on the other people you're collaborating with on their computers. And kind of call back to the Obsidian talk, you can link notes now between one Apple Note to another. So that'll be nice for complex things that may not be smart to put everything into one giant note. There's some formatting changes. You can do some block quotes to help separate out text. There's also monospaced fonts where you can have more of a code-looking note. And excuse me, there's also, you can also take the work you've done with a note and you can essentially pick it up with Pages and then do a lot of additional tweaks that Pages can do that is beyond the capability of Notes. So you can use Notes as a starting place for something to refine with Pages. So I think other neat stuff we have is, of course, the share AirTag access. That is a very big one. Like Linda said, with iOS 17, you don't necessarily have your spouse being called out as a stalker. So because they have their own AirTags. Improvements to messages, search, that's certainly something that has been badly needed and comes in line with iOS 17 changes. The Photos People album now recognizes pets or can distinguish between pets. So if you have, multiple dogs or dogs and cats or whatever, you can name them and that will recognize your pets as well by name. There is a lot of new video conferencing overlay options to put you in front of your content as you're presenting, or putting a little movable circle with your face around So far in the documentation, it is unclear whether this is strictly a FaceTime feature or whether it is a more general feature that can be used with other video services. So, and the predictive text while typing is interesting. It seems to be global through your system. So I think certain things like I think Google Docs has pretty well known for being able to suggest predictive text where it will try to predict what you're saying. And if you just hit a certain key, it will you just let it finish your sentence. That's good. And then, of course, to match kind of the standby mode, Apple TV has got, there are screensavers now that have an Apple TV-like screensaver in them. So it's coming next Tuesday and is compatible with Macs from 2018 and later. So right now it's available as a beta, but it should be pretty good when it's out. And it seems to be pretty stable for me. So that's all I have.
Okay, so I guess I'll take over now. And I'm going to talk to you about the Vision Pro.
And we are raffling one off today, aren't we?
Fortunately, they're not yet available, but we'll get to that. So let me start, and I'm going to give you a little 20-second introduction. So what is the Vision Pro? It is to put three-dimensional applications into your physical face. It's a new computer interface. It's based on eye and hand motions and voice prompts. It's also an immersive theater, and it will have both professional and homemade digital content. Now, there have been other virtual reality and augmented reality systems before. I have quite a few sitting in my closet. And these earlier ones were principally just intended to be 3D theaters using SD resolution. They never captured a general audience at all. Then we had the early augmented reality, the Google Glass, that was, in my opinion, just basically live streaming. And it, freaked people out. No one liked the idea that they were being recorded or streamed off to the internet or whatever when they were in the presence of someone wearing Google Glass. It did get some utility in industrial environments where it could be used as a instructional and control interface, but very minor type acceptance. So the Vision Pro, it makes a virtual space that matches your real space. The cameras mounted in it and the LiDAR scanner basically look at the environment you're in, and they recreate that in video for you to look at. So I should emphasize that when you have them on and you're seeing your environment, you're looking at a video feed. You're not actually looking optically through the device at your actual environment. And the way I put it is that no photons get in and no inside photons get out. The way it's set up. Now the applications will be shown as a picture-in-picture, similar to picture-in-picture drop-ins to that live feed that you're looking at. And your application will seem to float in the real space. It will cast shadows and have other little features to give it a very good sense of depth and placement. And of course, I have not experienced it myself yet, but all the reviews online talk about the fact that it is just so very it feels so very real to them to see the display floating out there in space. It does keep you present to the outside world. There are little cameras that will videoly recreate your eyes when someone walks up to you, so they can see this representation of your eyes on the front of the device. Again, I should emphasize that this is a video that they're looking at. It is not your actual eyes. They're not seeing through the device to you. You have in-device applications, and these will all be similar to what you're familiar with in your iPad and iPhone. So you'll have your TV, your music, your contacts, and so on, your photos especially, I think, all available to you. And your data will be synchronized to your iCloud just the same way it does on iPhone and iPad. It is also an interface. If you have a computer and you look at the computer, it will connect to it, and it will become a home theater display of your computer display. And you'll be able to operate the computer with the hand motions and eye motions and so forth, as well as your regular keyboard and such. But just look at your computer and it will make that connection for you. With that in mind, you definitely should always think that you need to make sure your environment is safe when you have the Vision Pro, because there may be things that your limited field of vision is going to be a hazard. So watch out for that. Content creation. Well, how do we do that? Well, you can record your environmental video directly with the Vision Pro. But as has been pointed out by many people, putting on this massive headset and sitting at a party or an event or whatever just is not going to make people feel very good. It's going to feel very uncomfortable. Now, maybe we're wrong about that. Maybe social mores will change and people will get accustomed to it. But the early response is that no, you don't want to put this on at your kid's birthday party. You can use professional 3D capture systems, such as the Canon dual lens. I have one of those myself, and I've experimented with it for making 3D videos. But you have to know that's going to be expensive. It's going to take a high level of expertise. Now, it will certainly be done. I'm sure that's the way that all your professional level videos will be created, but it's not something that your average user is going to be doing. However, it was announced last Tuesday that on the iPhone Pro, at least, the combination of the wide and medium field lenses can be used to record and save videos for the Vision Pro. And to me, when I heard that, I thought, oh, that's it. That is what people are going to want to do, because everyone has their phone with them. They'll just take it out of their pocket and they can record that birthday party or record that athletic event or whatever, suddenly with their phone. Very easy to do. So that's going to be, I think, the proverbial killer app for this thing. And here's the actual quote from Tim Cook, where he said that the iPhone Pro will be able to do this. And I think that in short order, maybe in the next generations next year, that will be extended to the lower end phones as well, because certainly this is something you want all of the average users to be able to have access to. So that's going to be, I think, the killer thing. You'll have your iPhone that will make the content generation, and then that will just take it right over to the Vision Pro for consumption by consumers. So that's what I'm expecting. What about programming? Well, you can program it using Xcode, actually Xcode beta at this point. And there is a Vision Pro simulator you can run on your computer. to see if it's working. You also have hands-on labs. They've already had a few of these run, where you can apply to get a time slot to come in and try to run your software or just get the feel of the device. And there will be a beta hardware kit. And for the beta hardware kit, it is a loan, apparently a free loan, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get it. You basically have to show your software, show that your team, and they do say team, has the appropriate expertise to develop a Vision Pro app and so on. But if that's done, then they will loan you some hardware, and you get to keep that for the next few months until the release of the public device. Public release, well, they say early 2024. Absolutely no guesses as to what that means. They didn't say first quarter, they said early. So I'm thinking, January, February, somewhere in there. Pity that it was not ready for Christmas, but who knows? Maybe there'll be pre-orders showing up in December. Okay, so that was the main presentation. Let's see, it's 8:33. I do have a 6-minute video here from Apple, but I think we'll skip that because it is getting kind of late. You can find this online. Just go to Apple, click on the Vision Pro introduction, and you will find several videos that will show you the device. So let me close this.
So Robert, I have a question about using an iPhone to create Vision Pro content. Those two lenses are like less than an inch apart, and our
Yes,
eyes are what, 4 inches apart? So I'm wondering how that could properly create 3D content.
Yeah, it's not going to give you much of a parallax. However, it may be enough to, give you the sense of 3 dimensions. And yes, it will not be comparable to what you can do, say, with the Canon dual lens, which matches the human eye separation. So yes, that's certainly a given there. But remember, our idea here is we want to make it possible for your average consumer to be able to do a little bit of homemade content that he can get into the Vision Pro. And again, it will be, your kid is running the 100-meter race, so you want to catch that and have it play backable. But I think the professional content will have to use professional equipment. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. My expectation on that is that Apple is going to do some amount of computations inside the phone to stretch the parallax on that, but there's still going to be a limitation in the data, the visual data that it can capture. So yeah, professional grade is obviously going to be much better, but this is going to work out pretty decently.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to unblur the background?
So more questions?
You know that one of the things that in doing professional 3D movies, that one of the things that needs to be taken into account is where to place the 3D subject in the frame, and that if it's done badly, it becomes very disorienting and totally destroys the effect. Like whether you're placing the object behind the screen, in front of the screen.
Yes, one of the early experiments in 3D was House of Wax. Not the more recent one. I'm talking about the 1950s version with Fitz and Price. But to get the theater audience used to wearing, their little colored glasses and looking at the 3D, the very first scene showed a street barker who had one of those little paddle and rubber ball things, and he was flipping it directly toward the audience. So the ball was going in and out from their faces. And the idea was to establish the 3-dimensional quality, rapidly so they could enjoy the rest of the film. when you see the version on TV these days that, of course, has been made in just a regular 2D presentation, it's actually kind of funny to see this guy in the first opening scene, bouncing a ball straight into the camera. But yes, that you're correct. It will take a cinematographer who knows what they're doing to get a good result. Of course, I did mention that you can also record using the Vision Pro itself. So if it's a situation where you've said, okay, we're going to make our own little home movie so that everyone understands that's what's going on, and it's not disrupting an event that has a different purpose altogether, that might be possible, as something for people to do. So, we'll see.
Does the video representation of your eyes, is that an animation of what your eyes are actually doing? Like if you wink, the eye winks. If you look left and right, the eyes look left and right?
My understanding is, and I'm not sure about this, my understanding is there's actually little cameras inside the device that will pick up on your eyes and see where they're looking and where they're winking and that kind of thing. And, project that representation onto the front screens. It would be kind of interesting to see if they'll let you do some weird stuff. For example, say, don't use my eyes, use anime eyes, or something like that, which would be kind of amusing. But right now, what they've been showing is a representation of the person's actual eyes. I believe there was something said about having to capture your face properly, like the same way you do Face ID, I suppose, to handle all that. But I would love it if they would say, okay, don't use my real eyes, use googly eyes, or use big, wide open anime character eyes, or something like that. That'd be hilarious.